Greetings, artists. Today we will be focusing on color within the elements of art. We've already learned line, shape, form, value, space, and now we're moving on to color. Go ahead and grab the watercolor paper from the back. Label it Elements of Art, Color. Be sure to add your name, date, and class period to your paper. Next, we're going to set up our paper. I need you to create 1 inch by 1 inch boxes. I separated mine by 1/2 inch. Yours can be a little closer together, but I don't want them further apart. The first 1 inch by 1 inch boxes you create will be labeled primary, as in primary colors. There are 3 primary colors: red, yellow, and blue. Your primary colors will create all other colors in your palette. You can mix your colors together to create secondary and tertiary colors. Next, we will create 3 more boxes for our secondary colors. You'll label that secondary, and those colors are orange, green, and purple, or violet. Next, you will create 6 1 inch by 1 inch boxes. These will be labeled tertiary. Measure about 3/4 of an inch from the first set of boxes, the primary and secondary, down your page to create your tertiary boxes. Label your tertiary colors: red-orange, yellow-orange, yellow-green, blue-green, blue-violet, red-violet. You will create a rectangle. It is 1 inch tall and about 6 inches long. Below that, you will label it ROYGBIV or Roy G. Biv. ROYGBIV. That will be red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Below that, you'll create a similar size rectangle and you will label that grayscale. We'll create a value scale using black and water in that section. I've labeled 0 through 7. Remember, 0 is always the color of your paper, or brightest, strongest highlights, and 7 will be the pigment straight out of the palette, solid black. Watercolor brushes are made of different types of hairs, from synthetic to animal hairs. The finest brushes are made of Kolinsky sable. We will be using synthetic brushes in class. Be sure to take great care of these, as with all our supplies, they are a class set. You may notice that your palette is dirty. You can go ahead and clean that at the sink. You can just pop out the paint tray. If you can't get it out, no worries. You can see when I walk over to the sink, I don't pop out the paint tray, but the first time I did do it, I did. So it depends on how stuck in there, depending on what the previous user did with the colors. But you want to make sure to have that top of your palette all cleaned out. And if you can pop out those pans, then clean out the bottom of the palette so it's not sticky under there. And then just snap it back in. Make sure everything's dry. And that's where we'll mix our colors, at the top of our palette. We'll start out by mixing water with our primary colors and applying it to our 1" by 1" boxes. You want to wet the brush. You want to make sure that you have a palette, a paintbrush, a cup of water, and a paper towel. There will be scraps of watercolor paper on the back table that you can use to do test marks. Mine's off screen, but every so often I will test my color on the watercolor paper before I put it on my sheet that I set up. That way, if my colors are adulterated or dirty, I can make sure to clean out the color before applying it to my paper so that I get full credit for the work that I do. You should do the same. I'll start out with red. Notice that I am cleaning my brush on the paper towel before dipping it back in the water. You want to keep your water as clean as possible, so you'll use your paper towel quite a bit to sop up the pigment from the brush. Right now you're watching in real time. I'll speed it up to time lapse in just a second, but I want you to see the care and time I'm taking to make sure that I properly apply the color to the page. So you want to start out with the strongest pigment at the top of your 1" by 1" box, and then you'll add a bit of water and drag it down to thin it out, because with watercolors it's all about the water and the transparency. So if yours is solid red, you have way too much pigment. You need to add more water. The beauty of watercolors is that it lets the paper show through the colors and it adds a vibrance to your artwork. So again, I'll start out with just solid pigment and water at the top, my deepest tones, and then I will add water, and it'll create a, I don't want to say a graded wash because it's not that smooth, but it will be a wash from a very deep pigment to a transparent pigment. You'll notice that I'm using different types of brushes. So depending what types of brushes we have available at the sink for you, it won't matter what kind you're using, you can get the same results. I'm showing you different brushes so you won't say, oh no, I don't have the round brush, or I don't have a filbert. It doesn't matter. What matters is you take your time and work on your craftsmanship when applying your colors to the page. So you'll add your red, yellow, and blue straight from the palette, from the pans. For your secondary colors, I want you to mix those. So add a bit of water to the top of your palette, and for orange we'll add red, and then you'll get more water and add the yellow pigment to it. Notice how soupy mine is? That's what you want. It's not acrylic paint. It shouldn't be thick and opaque. You want a nice transparent film to apply to the paper. And you'll do the same thing you did with your primary colors. You'll have your boldest pigment at the top, and then it'll gradually decrease in color strength as you go down to the bottom of that 1" by 1" box. So for orange, you mix red and yellow. For green, you mix yellow and blue. Notice, again, I can't stress enough, I'm cleaning my brush on that paper towel, sopping up all that pigment just to make sure that I can keep my water clean. This will cut down on trips to the sink so that you won't have to spend a lot of time doing maintenance work. You can actually get down to the business of painting. And then for purple, at the top of my palette, I'll mix blue and red. Now you want to keep those colors there at the top of the palette and make sure that you're putting them in different sections so that when you go to mix your tertiary colors, all you have to do is add the primary that's necessary to that secondary to get your tertiary. I'm showing you what the secondary colors look like straight out of the pan. Notice the difference in the pigments. The orange is much more punchy and vibrant, same with the green and the purple. I will know if you just put the color straight out of the pan onto the paper. Please mix your color. This is to help you so that when you're doing your independent practice, it'll be a lot easier to get a a wider range of colors and values. So for red orange, I already have orange mixed at the top of my palette. I'll add red to it. Now adjust as necessary. If you add so much red that it looks red instead of orange, add more yellow. You'll notice that I do that with my red orange. Mine was too deep, and so I made the adjustment. Watercolor is pretty forgiving as long as you take your time and work it out. If you have questions or you're just completely stumped, please ask me so I can help you. But as long as you're mixing the correct colors, you're taking your time, you should be fine. What to mix is in the name of the color for the tertiaries. So if you have yellow orange, then you need to mix yellow and orange. If you already have green at the top of your palette and you're trying to make blue green, add blue to the green. It's pretty simple. So you'll go ahead and mix all of those, and I'll let the time lapse play and you can see how I mix these colors and make adjustments. We'll continue in the next video. Play back as many times as you need to. Ask questions. I'm here to help you. Let me know what you need. I look forward to seeing what you create. Thank you.